Today, we have a functionally uninsured society because their deductibles are so high, they don't have $500 in their checking account. So if they go to the hospital, they're bankrupt. So people avoid care and delay care. Forget COVID. They were delaying care before COVID ever came out. So we eliminate all those barriers. So if we can do that and bring the city, the county school, we have a community plan. We can relocalize care. We can keep the money on Main Street instead of sending it to Wall Street. And that's what has to happen.
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prescription for Success. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, your host for the podcast, which is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians to overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be. Visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com because you're not in this alone. Well, we're switching gears just a little bit on this episode. From time to time, we like to hear from people who are not physicians, but yet they have a significant interest in what physicians do, and they're in a position to impact what physicians do. Carl Schuessler Jr. has some really different ideas on how we can get control of healthcare costs, and he's already got some results to prove it. So let's hear what he has to say. Well, this is going to be a really interesting show today. We have what we like to call a special interest guest. Our guest today is not a physician, but somebody who is very important to physicians, Mr. Carl Schuessler Jr., who is the founder, I believe, and I guess managing partner of Mitigate Partners. Am I right, Carl?
Yes, sir. Co-founder, managing principal. Co-founder. Yes, sir.
I always get the legal part wrong, but in any case, Carl, we're really delighted to have you here, and I'm so excited to talk to you about the things that you've been doing. As you know, your colleague Dave Chase was a guest of mine a while back, and you guys are sort of in the same territory, and I'm really interested to hear more about that school of thought. So with that in mind, I would like to begin like we always do and talk about some of your beginnings. I understand that you were born in Augusta, Georgia, which is where I did my surgery training. How did that happen?
Yes, sir. I was, I think it was Talmadge Memorial, Dr. Cook, and my father
was back then.
Yeah, my father was in medical school, and he graduated in 68. And so I was born in 67 down there. Not there very long before we moved on to Macon, Georgia, where he did his residency.
Yeah. Well, that was a decade or so before I showed up, but probably the place had not changed much when I got there. I have really fond memories of Augusta, Georgia. It was a wonderful place, and it's good to meet an Augusta native, as it were. So let's move things along. You did your growing up in Macon, which is located in central part of Georgia, I guess you would say. Your dad was a physician, right?
Yes, sir. He was an OBGYN for about 40 years in private practice.
Yeah. Is he still alive? Is he still around?
He is. He's right at 80, and he
Wow.
He works at our farm. We call it Red Flag Farm. If you want to hear a funny story, my dad's CPA said that anytime a physician buys a piece of property and is using it for any tax advantages, the red flags go up. So that's why he called it. We cut hay and we lose money every year. So, but we do cut hay and he sells hay. So, but that's what he does out there 3 days a week. And he and my mother.
Bet it's very therapeutic for him.
It is. It's we do a lot of deer hunt down there, and we've had a lot of people that Well, you may know some of them come down, and it's wonderful. We'll be down there a lot coming up in the fall, and it's great. He really has enjoyed it, and it's manicured to a T. I mean, you can walk around the whole lake and never
I
see any
bet.
kind of water moccasin or anything. So it's crazy.
I hate to bring my personal stories into this podcast, but I'm going to do it right now. You mentioned deer hunting. Back when I was in residency, they had a split deer season in Georgia every year. And every year that I was there, the entire 5 years that I was there, on the first day of deer season, I got a gunshot wound from a hunting accident. So I really appreciate the deer hunters contributing to my education, but I do wish they'd be more careful. Don't you think they should be?
Yes, sir. I hope we usually know the people on our property, but yeah, you might run into a couple of folks that can do that sometimes. We've been so far so good, but get on my dad all the time. I said, Dad, during the season, you need to wear your orange vest when you're in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
working in the woods down there. And, he's, son, and all that. But my dad doesn't listen to me. Of course, he expected me to listen to him, but he doesn't listen to me. So,
Turnabout's fair play, I guess.
yes, sir.
So you did your growing up in central Georgia, and I gather at some point you gave some consideration to maybe following in your dad's footsteps and being a physician, or did you not?
Yeah, yes, sir. I went to the University of Georgia, as we like to say, the Harvard of the South, and I went up there, and it was pre med, and really just because my father.
Mm-hmm.
And I took biology 101. I think it was Dr. Barstow was his name. And we sat in this huge auditorium, Dr. Cook. I mean, it was big. And it was probably, I don't know, could seat 200 or 300 people. And, coming from a small private school in middle Georgia that graduated
Yeah.
52 people, that was a big change. And I'll never forget that first day. Mr. Schuessler. And I had to stand with that's me, and that's back when you were, young and worried about what people thought. So
Yeah.
I don't care too much anymore about those things. But so anyway, I took the class and I just kind of said, God, this is not for me, and I'm going to do something different. I like business, and that's what I did.
So you made the turnaround right there in biology class.
Yes, sir. I just didn't. It just wasn't for. I mean, I loved watching my father. I mean, I tell you, back in the day, and I hope today, the physicians just really had so much respect from the public when they were allowed to take care of patients, when the patients were in the center of the healthcare system. And that was really that. And I just liked the way my dad was viewed, really, by our community and a respected member of the community. And I just, you like the success he had. And I thought that's what I want to do. And he took care of people. And I did like taking care of people and helping people. And that's what it was. So, I think where we are now, we're doing a great job in helping take care of people, just in a different, capacity.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that. And frankly, I think that showed a good bit of insight for a relatively young person at that point for you to understand that you wanted to go a different path. And at that point, did you have any idea about what sort of a professional role you would play, or did you have to think about it for the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I remember I majored in risk management and insurance and estate management. And I do need to tell you this, just a real diversion. So my dad and mom, we would have dinner, obviously every night as a kid. And I started playing golf when I was probably 11. And I would play 72 holes of golf every day. And that nice, cool temperatures in Macon, Georgia,
Oh, yeah.
one of the hottest places on earth. It's where the coastal and the Piedmont plain meet, and there is no
Yep.
breeze. So I would come home, and my dad, bless his heart, he would listen to all 72 holes replay every night.
Wow.
And so the reason I'm sharing this is, when I told him what I thought I would do, he said, well, that's fitting for you. You've never been short of words. But I majored in risk management, insurance, and estate management, which Georgia, depending on where you look, has the number 1 or 2 program in the country. And I like the estate management side and financial planning side. So I started my career as a college agent with Northwestern Mutual, which is a great company. I learned a ton, went to work after that. When I graduated, went into that full time in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was there, I think, 12 years. There's a person called a general agent that's there, and I was developed some specialty in area of disability insurance, and they were sort of trying to control me, and that doesn't work real well for Carl Schuessler. And so we parted ways. It was tough because it's what's called an exclusive agency system. So if Dr. Cook had a Northwestern Mutual policy for me, now I really couldn't service it anymore because I wasn't there. And so it's I think State Farm's like that as well. So, but I learned a ton. I love to help people. Dr. Cook, think about it, Dr. Cook, at 22 years old, I'm coming out there to see you, an established person, telling you I can help plan your life, And I didn't think anything of it. I look back now and I says, what the heck was I doing? How would anybody even listen to me, But it's funny how much bolder you are when you're younger. But I loved it. I loved helping people. I started doing benefits during that time, and we had a operation in-house where we shared the revenue with the benefits group. And I did pretty well with that. It was usually number 1 or 2 in the office in that area. And I said, I kind of like this. So when I went on my own, I started doing more benefits and so forth. And that's kind of how that happened. And I just sort of graduated more to that and really didn't do as much of the individual financial planning or working with businesses. I chose to work in the benefits side of things. And that world it changed a lot. I've recreated myself probably 4 or 5 times in the process of how different that business was. All you did then was do the BUCA, Blue Cross, United, Cigna, and Humana, and just do that. And it was relationships, and you went out, but you didn't have any real differentiators other than service. And then Affordable Care Act came in 10, and we were already doing some innovative things up to that point. That evaporated some of the things we were doing as well. And then, just went on, and we can talk more about it, but went on that journey by 2013.
Remember medical school? You were confident, studious, hardworking, and you learned what to expect in all manner of patient care. Then reality struck. Regulations, expenses, staff management, and administration. Is this what we signed up for? Stress on the verge of burnout, no time for family, or the reason we got into medicine. Helping people. What are the options when you're afraid you're in the wrong career? Transition? Teach? Quit? What if there was another way? MD Coaches can help. We're a team of medical professionals with a century of experience in the clinical and business sides of medicine. More importantly, MD Coaches has been where you are, stressed and trying to navigate a world school didn't prepare us for. MD Coaches is your mentor, your confidant, to help you make your practice shine, navigate administrations, and successfully lead staff and projects. Or if you're ready to transition, we can help there too. MD Coaches is doctors helping doctors. Visit our website to receive a free, no-obligation consultation. Go to mymdcoaches.com/RX. That's mymdcoaches.com/RX. Isn't it time someone else was on your side? Don't let the business of being a doctor stop you from doing what you love. That site again, mymdcoaches.com/RX. Visit us today.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but right now I want to tell you a little bit about Physician Outlook. If you haven't discovered this remarkable magazine, please do so very soon. It was created by physicians, for physicians, to showcase the intersection between clinical and non-clinical interests. Whether it's writing, painting, cooking, politics, and dozens of other topics, Physician Outlook gives a physician perspective. It's available online and in print. It's really unique among physician lifestyle magazines. And like the Prescription for Success podcast, Physician Outlook amplifies the voice of any physician who has something to say. It also engages patients who still believe in physician-led, team-based care. And Prescription for Success listeners can get 3 months free when you enter our promo code RX for Success and select the monthly option at checkout. That's a really great deal on this stunning publication. And now let's get back to today's interview. I guess that's been a common thing for all of us. The economics of just about everything has changed dramatically, particularly over the last 20 to 25 years. But I don't think the change has been quite as profound any place other than healthcare. So I'm interested to know how you began to realize and understand that there was something in the healthcare world that needed to be managed and that you might have the answer.
Well, I'll answer that. I also want to thank one of my mentors. His name is Barry Murphy, and co-founder of Mitigate Partners. He was very influential in kind of my journey in the benefits world. And the joke is he mentored me, and now Barry's 70 and I mentored him and pulling him along, and he'll I'm sure he'll hear this, and it was true, because what happened really, Dr. Cook, is we were doing a lot of what's called HRAs, health reimbursement arrangements,
Mm-hmm.
from probably '06 to 2010. And when the Affordable Care Act came, it really basically evaporated the ability to raise deductibles as high as possible. We would do that and then have our clients self-insure that deductible money with an HRA. And only 7% of the people ever had a deductible related event happen, because you remember the co-pays were out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way the employer was keeping all that money instead of giving it to the insurance company. And so we were already doing that self-funded kind of model at that point, but just with via an HRA. And when Obamacare or Affordable Care Act came, all of a sudden the out-of-pockets went down, everything changed, and you didn't have the flexibility, and therefore there was not pricing differences in those programs. So again, kind of had to reinvent ourselves, and we were looking, and it started in 2013 for me. Dr. Cook, I coached 43 of my kids' teams. That's one thing I can tell you. My father, and we're in the Schuessler family, we're a little OCD, if you didn't pick up on that, 43 teams.
I might
But
have guessed.
my dad was a great father. My mom was unbelievable. But if my dad, when you're in practice with one other people, it started with Dr. King when Dad went into practice. Dr. Cook, they couldn't say, "Hey, my son has a game, Miss Cook. You have to hold that baby because I got to watch him play." that
Yeah,
that that dog will not hunt, Dr. Cook. And so, he couldn't coach. He couldn't do that. He's a great father, but he couldn't be there for all those things. It was not
sure.
possible
Yeah.
until he got, 3 or 4 partners later. But the point was that was important for me to take that role with my kids. And so I was coaching my son's middle school baseball team with another fellow who's actually a physician, great guy, good friend of ours, Dr. Moore, who's a thoracic surgeon. I was in there putting the ball on the tee, and there are nets all involved here. And all of a sudden, this ball is hit through the net and hits me in the side of the face. And
Wow.
immediately blood just comes pouring out of my nose. And it was like it's just kind of silence. You felt like the world stopped. And Dr. Moore grabbed me, went to Northside Hospital where he practiced. And again, I was okay. I was walking. I was fine. I don't know. Maybe he drove me. I can't remember. I could have driven. And
Of course you could.
we got in the no, I could have. Now I'm
Yeah, I just
telling you.
got hit in the head with a
Yeah,
baseball. Let's go
but
take a drive.
you might not want to ride with me, Dr. Cook. But I might not have gotten there. But anyway, so I went in there, sat in the emergency room. No pressing thing, and found out. Of course, I think that event was $4,000 or $5,000, and I know we'll
Right.
cover some of that later, and all that. And so forth. They checked me, did the scan, did the CT, and all that, and everything was fine. And so the doctor, I never forget, said, "You're going to have a hell of a headache tomorrow, Carl." Well, we went and got all the Percocet and all that stuff back before the opioid crisis. And I really didn't take any medicine. And the truth was, Dr. Cook, I never had a headache. Now, my face over the next 2 weeks turned 30 different shades of
I
colors.
bet it was ugly.
So we were, all that. And I broke 6 bones in my face, but you wouldn't have told. If it happened to my son, who at that point was, 12, 13,
Mm-hmm.
he'd had to have major reconstructive surgery. So when you're an old stubborn person like myself, the bones ended up working out fine. So oral surgeon, everything was great. And so long story short, I'm sitting there, I'll never forget, and I'm reading Stephen Brill's The Bitter Pill article in Time Magazine. And at that time, it was February of 13. It was the longest article in the history of Time Magazine. Didn't know that until later, but it was. And I started to see all the things in the healthcare system. I said, God, I always thought something was crazy about that. And it kind of sent me down a path that has been going on since then, and it will always evolve like a walk with the big fella upstairs. We never get there. We always evolve. We'll never arrive. And that's kind of where this thing is for us. And so we kept on evolving and changing and so forth. And really, it was at that point I said, as my feet hit the floor, other than thanking the Lord, is how can I be the best fiduciary and steward of my client's money, treating it like it's mine? And I take it pretty daggum serious. And so I started looking at cost containment and risk mitigation solutions all over the world to try to find the best ones to bring them together. We couldn't work with employers in the BUCA system, Blue Cross, United, Cigna, and Humana, and I call it the cartel. Everybody knows that. I say that.
Mm-hmm.
They have so many embedded conflicts of interest. You can't build a program, and every year I'd meet you, and your rates would go up 20%. And guess who also got a raise? I did. And I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything other than go and run quotes for you and so forth. And I saw you once or twice a year. So we started doing this and digging. And as we did, we started talking to third-party administrators, independent third-party administrators, not owned by the BUCAs. And we went to them, and this was kind of
Carl,
our talk.
I want to interrupt you for just a moment. I want to make sure that everybody gets it straight. I think they'll get it, but I want you to a little more slowly tell everybody what BUCA is.
BUCA is the cartel. They're
the members are
Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna, and Humana.
I think it's very important that everybody hears those names out loud in a discussion like this. And I apologize for the interruption, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody got it.
No, you were good. You were good, Dr. Cook. But I got to be honest with you. I've never been accused of talking too fast, so you might be the first. So, but I appreciate you doing that. So anyway, we started looking, and we went to these independent third-party administrators because we knew what we did, Dr. Cook, is we found these solutions, and now there's over 20 of them that we seamlessly integrated into this platform we'll talk about. But this was the call with the third-party administrators. Hey, my name's Carl Schuessler. Dr. Cook told me about y'all. Great, good. Appreciate you calling us. Said, here's the deal. I'm having a party, and I've got the band locked down. I got the catering locked down. I got the booze locked down. I've got the valet parking locked down, but I got a big problem. I have got nowhere to host this party. Will you host my party? And they said, sure. I said, but you can't serve, Budweiser. You got to serve Michelob Light. Well, I want to serve Budweiser. Well, you can't do that. And you can't do this and this and this. And I said, well, I just don't see this working out. And the point was, Dr. Cook, the solutions we felt were better than what the third-party administrators offered. Yet they didn't want to use our solutions because they weren't going to make money on those solutions like they do on a lot of the solutions they have themselves. And I'm talking about independent third-party administrators. I'm not blasting any of them. They're in business for a profit. I understand it. But it was very important to me that I felt like our vetting, and we've made plenty of mistakes, Dr. Cook, but we have vetted and found what we consider the best partners in our fair cost health plan and our program. And so I searched and searched and searched. And I have a saying that everybody knows, and I'll go ahead and say it to you. But all TPAs suck is finding the least sucky of the suckiest. And so I thought, and you didn't laugh, Dr. Cook. I'm highly offended.
Sorry. Believe me. I didn't know whether to laugh or whether to say amen.
Yes. Well, here was the problem, Dr. Cook. So the problem was we found what we thought was the least suckiest of the suckiest, and that was wrong. Then we changed to another one, and that was wrong. And we're on to like number 4 now. And it wasn't what we built's complicated. It was the basic blocking and tackling they struggle with. But the Blue Cross, United, Cigna, and Humana couldn't help us because they aren't going to it's misaligned incentives all over the place. They don't benefit when costs go down. So we built this program and so forth. And we like to refer to it in the kind of like a house, if you will. Each brick represents a cost containment solution.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought them all together, and really what we wanted, and it came up, my other kind of co-founder, Mitigate Partners, Barry Broom, said, why don't you call it employer-built healthcare? Because we struggle keeping this simple, Dr. Cook. And if the physicians and all the people listening are going, man, this fella's confused me more than anything. I said, well, my dad would be able to sympathize with him, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But he called it employer-built healthcare. And I said, that's good. I said, versus insurer-built healthcare. And so that's really what drove us is we were able to be the best fiduciary and steward of our clients' money, treating it like it was ours by building a plan, custom building a plan for them. And now that we built it and we keep adding solutions to it, it's already built.
You were looking at it from the standpoint of the entity that had the most at risk.
Correct. Yeah. And when you build, and here's the thing, Dr. Cook, the insurer built plans are passively managed. They aren't managed at all. And I'll give you examples if you want me to. I mean, like I said, listen, I can go Lionel Richie on you all night long if you want to today.
Well,
But,
yeah,
but
I think we need to hear some details because, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot that they don't teach in medical school about healthcare finance, and I think you understand. I mean zero. So please carry on.
all right, here's a good example. So let's just think about medical management. And that's something that would make most doctors laugh. And you know good and well what it is, Dr. Cook. Part of it is that, hey, you got to call the insurance company for the pre-cert or the prior authorizations. How many millions of dollars did your practice spend in that process? Okay. We can eliminate some of those for certain doctors in our fair cost health plan. We can save doctors tons of money if we found the really, really good quality ones that do good work. We're able to do that as long as we get approval from our stop loss carrier, because when you self-insure or self-fund a group, partially self-fund, you do have to have stop loss to protect you. So we've been able to do this. So here's a good example. Okay, we work with I'm not no longer with this client. Our co-founder Barry Murphy still is. Our model really is once we kind of get it going, is Carl runs off and has been asked to speak around the country a lot, so he gets up and runs his mouth, gets people fired up, and we go and we put programs in, and eventually we kind of exit and help the people and mentor them to get them where they need to be and partner with people, and then we kind of leave. But this particular school district, they were with Abuka and they were with Cigna. So March of 2020, we're sitting there and we would get these emails, Dr. Cook. It seemed almost like 3 or 4 times a week. And it would come from Cigna. And it would say, Dr. Cook, here is your large claimant notification for today with an exclamation mark. And I'm like, what makes you think I'm excited about getting this, And I just was like, really? I guess because they're excited because they're going to make more money and their stock price goes up. I don't know, but it certainly wasn't good for our clients. So long story short, we had a $3.2 million heart transplant come in March of 2020, Dr. Cook. And literally, that was the first we heard of it.
Wow.
How can it be that we didn't hear about this a long time ago? That's just totally unacceptable. So anyway, thanks to Cigna's great negotiating power, and they were able to get a discount. So it was only $2.2 million, Dr. Cook. What a good deal that was.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing. People think those groups are good at negotiating. They don't want to meet us because we know how to negotiate. They don't. Anyway, but that's the intermediary everybody hires to do their negotiating. So good luck with that. Let me know how it works out for you. So anyway, the bottom line was that was the deal. Now, Dr. Cook, their stop loss coverage was $900,000 per individual. So the school district and the taxpayer paid $900,000 for that claim.
Wow.
In our model, that call would come into our medical management company in the fair cost health plan. It would come in and immediately we would be notified, the advisor would be notified or advisors, the cost and quality partner of ours that verifies and looks at the quality of physicians and hospitals, et cetera. Our custom network partner would be involved, and the third-party administrator would be involved. And we would roll our sleeves up. And that claim would have been paid at $184,000. That's the difference. The key to good management is to deal with a claim before it becomes a claim. And that's what's not done in that Buka world. It absolutely is not. And they're bad at it. Again, they don't care because it's not their money. But, backroom deals and things with different providers and facilities is, what they live off of. So anyhow, that was how that worked. And when I tell you, that's one of the bricks in the house is the medical management. And the foundation of the house is is value-based direct primary care. People like Dr. Lee Gross, Dr. Shane Purcell. I can go down the list. I'll leave people off and hurt people's feelings. But there's so many people, and Dr. Gross has been instrumental across the country in getting this done. That's the foundation, if you imagine the cinder blocks that you see going up in your neighborhood when a house is being built. And then you start to layer the bricks on top. And so what we did, Dr. Cook, because we couldn't get what we wanted in the health plan, we deconstructed the whole system and rebuilt it brick by brick. And so now we have all these custom cost containment solutions in the Fair Cost Health Plan that represent a brick. And I just was giving you one example of what I'm talking about, medical management. And the ability for everyone to share and work for the member, we call it integrated coordinated care, or IC squared. They all communicate in a HIPAA platform online, if you will, up in the cloud. And that's how these members are taken care of. I'll give you one other quick story, and you just have to tell me, like I said, to shut up. Our client, DeSoto Memorial Hospital, that you've heard about a little bit, you know a little bit about. They had a member during COVID. It was probably April of 20. They had a member that had all kinds of comorbidities, and they were going to have to be put in a long-term acute care hospital. Fair Cost has a direct contract. I don't know if you ever heard of Kindred Healthcare. Kindred Healthcare, they're the largest health tech. We have a direct. They liked what they heard one time when we were on stage up there against the Bucas. Actually, that's a whole other day, another story. I'll have to tell you that one. But they approached us, and they love what we were doing. So we've got a really strong contract, better than what you'll get on the other side with the Bucas. And so there was one of those facilities in St. Petersburg, Florida. The DeSoto Memorial is in Arcadia. So that's not a terrible haul, but a little bit of a haul. And this member wanted their wife there with them. But, the wife couldn't go in the hospital, Dr. Cook, during COVID.
Sure. Yeah.
So here was the deal. Think about, I want you to hear this. This is really, really important for the listeners. Because of this team that we've created in the Fair Cost Plan, they were able to, Kindred got involved, and they said, our close facility is St. Pete. And the wife said, that just won't work for us. I want to be close so I can get there easy. So we found a facility in Sarasota, Florida, that they were able to go to. And we got them on the first floor with a window view of the parking lot so he could see his wife every day. Because it's like my dad says, son, having that doctor-patient relationship is like a panacea. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're going to be okay because you have that relationship. That's obviously somewhat been lost, as you know, but that was so important. In this case, him seeing his wife was uplifting for him. It helped him get better. So how about that? We were able to go that far down the chain in care, and we're able to work out a single case agreement with that facility through our great network partner. That is just wonderful. And we did that. Then he got moved to and that, I guess you'd call that more of a SNF, skilled nursing facility. Sure. Then they got moved to a rehab center, and we were able to do a single case agreement there, same situation, first floor, and so forth. So those are just examples. You're not going to get that in a Buca.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't. It's hard for me to visualize any insurance company that I've currently heard of going to that extent to help anybody. That's just amazing.
Yeah, so
you got to be proud of yourself.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm proud of our partners, and we're just so blessed. We did a big event at Gasparilla, the Gasparilla Inn, back in June. We had an employer day on June the 7th, and we had our Mitigate Fair Cost Day the next day. And I'm just proud to be associated with these partners. And Dr. Cook, if you had been there as a physician and the care you had for your patients, I know you did, you'd be blown away when you see the love come from the stage.
Oh,
the love these people have for the members and the dedication. If I showed you the amount of time and energy that pours into it for just the littlest things, and that in itself is different. And that's putting the patient back in the center of the system. Right now, the patients, if you imagine a solar system, they're Uranus. They're way out there. I mean, we got to get the patient back in the middle, and that's what our Fair Cost Health Plan really does.
Yeah, and I like your analogy to being way out in the solar system, but the idea that I get when I look at these scenarios that I've lived through before is it's much more than the patient being far, far away. The patient is looked at as overhead, and that's wrong.
Yeah, well, that's well said. I think it gets back to this, and this is something Barry Murphy and I coined, and we call it neighborhood health care. It gets back to the Marcus Welby MD days.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we need to go. And we feel basically neighborhood health care is neighbors taking care of neighbors. How do you do it? You have to eliminate the counterproductive communication barriers inherent in these traditional insurance employer health provider relationships. And you know what those barriers are, Dr. Cook. We just covered a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it will lead to more effective and less costly outcomes for these plans and better benefits for the employees. And if the community-based model is done correctly, it enhances the hospitals, the local physicians, and the community pharmacists. Don't forget those folks.
Oh
They've been
man, yeah.
getting crucified by the PBMs. For the audience, that's pharmacy benefit manager, but really my term is program bilking millions. Um,
I
but
love that one.
but that local care team is the difference, and that's what we have to get back to. So people, when we spoke at the Free Market Medical Association back in March and presented these 3 case studies, I said, "Do y'all picking up a common theme?" And again, nobody could talk; they're all muted. But I said, "Yeah, eliminate the middles." It's not that complicated, and but you have to have a plan to build. And so, Dr. Cook, there's a great cartoon you may have seen. It's a doctor looking in the ear of the third party, the insurance company, and the insurance company's looking in the ear of the patient on the table. So it really is a great analogy of what's happened. And my dad told me that when managed care popped in the late 70s, early 80s, he said, "It's it. So," and he was right. And that's what we have to do. And so that's what we do. And that is what makes this so unique out there. And a lot of advisors or brokers or whatever you want to call them, don't call me a broker, by the way. That won't end well for anybody. We don't want you to get another wound when you're deer hunting
We'll
with
be
me.
careful.
Yeah, we don't want you to get wounded again. But they're not. They're putting 1 or 2 solutions in and band-aids, and you have to build a plan where all the parts work together. And these partners that I'm so proud to be associated with have worked together for 6 years now. And they know when the others, needs to go tinkle. They know when the other has to burp. They know whatever that person has
Mm-hmm.
going on. They know each other that well. And that integration, it's like you when you're a physician or that nurse team that works with you. My dad used to say, I won't name hospitals, but when he was an OB at one hospital, that team was so great. The delivery nurses, they were fabulous. The other hospital, they weren't. They weren't in sync. And the care teams, you know this. So it's what you have to do here. And when they work in unison, it's a beautiful thing. And more importantly, it delivers better outcomes for the patients and the members and better financial outcomes for the patient member and for the employer. And you've seen some of those examples of what we have been able to achieve with having some
I
great,
have.
courageous employers to work
Yeah.
with.
Carl, one thing that I'm really curious about, and that is a potential stumbling block to getting to all the people, and that is how big of a business is required? How many employees are required to be able to put together a plan like this?
That's a great question. Dr. Cook, we have, not to go too much in the weeds, we have what we call a fair cost simple funded plan, and it depends on the states people are in. But that's a program that minimizes the risk of what most people get worried about self-funding. They shouldn't, but they do, and it minimizes their risk and basically works like a fully insured plan. So they pay the same premium every month, and it doesn't change. It's a combination of having your stop loss and everything together. It's more bundled. So that can go down, depending on the states, that could go down to 2 people. It can go 25. It could be over 50. It just depends on the states. And like state of Florida, which is pretty much a fully insured state, for one of our programs is 51 or more employees. For the other program is 25 or more. They're one of the few states. New York's the same way. And if you look at it and you study it, that's why the cartel wins in Florida. I'm just telling you, it's crazy. Dr. Cook, Barry Murphy and I looked at an RFP, a request for proposal from Hillsborough County Schools. I'm going to put it out there and I hope they hear this. 24,000 lives. 24,000 lives, Dr. Cook. The 7th largest school district in the country. That's Hillsborough County. That's Tampa. Dr. Cook, I could tell you when the person was going to go to the bathroom next. That data is so credible with 24,000 lives. They were fully insured with Humana. They're buying insurance from Humana at that size. That's all you need to know about Florida. It's crazy. And those laws of having 51 or more, that's why those are there. It's ridiculous. And so those are the kind of things. But to answer your question, preferably 100 or more. But we for the real programs like we're doing with Gasperland and DeSoto Memorial Hospital and some of the others, but we can go down in size to minimize the risk for that employer and have them still benefit from all the fair cost partners and know their risk is capped and so forth. So we can go down smaller, but we're really looking 100 plus. But again, we got a lot of people that are coming into these smaller ones because that's America. America's not 10,000 employee companies. It's, 20, 15, 25, 10, whatever. That's, where the DPC model has worked so well in those smaller employers.
Well, the good news, I think, is that because of people like you, we're beginning to look at it from a different angle. But yeah, that is a great concern of mine. I've lived in the small town South most of my life. I did live for 13 years in the Tampa Bay area, and I know those entities that you were just talking about. But most of my life has been in the small town South, and there are lots of very productive small businesses that have a dozen or maybe 15 or 20 employees, and they are really taking a beating in the insurance world. So at least now that you guys are beginning to move the needle, those people will begin to get some attention. I certainly hope so. Do you see that in the future at all?
Yes, sir. Our biggest challenge, really being just as blunt as I can be, which I've known to be. Hopefully, we practice Southern bluntness, so we at least sound nice when we do it. It's hard to make a living in that smaller market unless you do a ton of it.
Sure.
And then you end up with 200 clients, and it's difficult because at that level, how much attention can you treat these with? With our Fair Cost Simple Funded, if they're in the state where we can go down to smaller sizes, we can do some pretty cool stuff, and they can have some great savings and so forth. But again, on 10 people, how much are you going to save? And that's kind of what's economies of scale. So I think that our goal in most of the mitigate partner firms is they're smaller. Some of them are large, but a lot of them are concierge practicing, focusing on a small group of clients. We're not trying to add 20 clients a year. Could care less about that. We'll do just fine financially with what we're doing, and we can make a difference. And when you actively manage a health plan, Dr. Cook, you're not going to, unlike the rest of these brokers who are on the golf course at 12 o'clock every day or maybe just Fridays, I'm still answering calls at 6:30 at night while I'm in a deer stand. I can't even get in a deer stand and hunt because I'm having to deal with the calls. I just put myself in the deer stand in what used to be the swamp on our property because the cell phone doesn't work there real well. But you're compelled to help. So that's the deal. You've got to, and I can't go to Dr. Cook with 5 employees and say, Dr. Cook, for me to help you, you have to pay me $5,000, $10,000 or something like that, because why are you going to do that? I could prove to you why you ought to, but it's different. So they need the help more than anybody, Dr. Cook. And that's why we do have a program for them, but it's just to spend the time. We did have a group actually in Arcadia, Florida, where DeSoto is. It's like 8 or 9 people, and the CEO of the hospital, Vince Sika, who's great and just a courageous employer. The things they've done down there are just legendary of what's happened. And with the team, Lois Hilton and Dan Hogan and Teresa and the whole group, they've just done great work. Well, he said, hey, can you help this employer? They're only 9 or 10 people. So Barry Murphy and I went over there. It was last Monday. We had a whole Fair Cost Health Plan Roadshow too. We had 17 face-to-face meetings in a week. We were humping it. And we met with them, and we're going to put them in touch with one of our other mitigate partners in the Lakeland area and try to get them some help. Because and have what they have the same plan they have at the hospital. It'll be challenging, but we're going to try to help them as best we can. And that's the deal. You spend as much time helping that size group as you do one of 200.
Well, it's mighty good to know that somebody is interested, and it's mighty good to know that you guys are getting a lot of attention on the strength of standing up and say, there is another way to look at this. And, I don't know how loudly to say congratulations or how grateful that I am to know that somebody is doing something about it, because it really had gotten to be pretty much unbearable. I retired 2 years ago. I was like a lot of physicians. I'd reached a point where I spent more time fighting with insurance companies and fighting with hospital administrators than I did fighting disease, and it shouldn't be that way. And what you've done is to show me a little bit of a hope, a little inkling of hope, that maybe we're going to be able to put the patient back at the center of things once again. I certainly hope so.
Well, the only challenge we got is we can only do it one employer at a time. As I like to say, and I want to, we're not wrapping up, are we? We're going to go for another couple hours, right?
Sure,
okay,
at
just want
least.
to make sure. Just warning everybody out there. You go get you a glass of iced tea or a cold beer and just relax. But sweet tea, I should say, right?
Absolutely.
We tried to boil the ocean, if you will, Washington, D.C. And you learn real quick the amount of lobbying money. And I was laughing when you said special interest speaker today. I'm like, don't call me a special interest group.
I'm sorry. I hadn't really thought that might be a pejorative term.
No, that's okay. You're good. You're good. I'm just having fun with you. But the amount of money and the lobbying money is in the millions and billions. And when you look at that, there's no way we can change it there. Now, as I often say, we're boiling the creeks. We're going to then boil the rivers. We'll boil the lakes. And then we'll boil the ocean, and we'll meet everyone else, like Patient Rights Advocate, who is led by Cynthia Fisher and Aloria Santangelo and Linda Bent. They're great people. Marnie Jameson, Carey. They're doing unbelievable work. You might know a few of those names. They were involved in our conference back in June. They are unbelievable. All the hospital transparency that you're seeing, Dr. Cook, is really the backbone of all that was coming from Patient Rights Advocate. Those videos you saw of our clients, Patient Rights Advocate came and they heard about what we were doing in Florida, and they wanted to feature these clients if the clients were okay with it, which they were. Former HHS Secretary Alex Azar and the White House have a front row seat there, and they were showing these things. Actually, President Trump was supposed to meet the Gasparilla Inn in Orlando at the HIMSS conference in February of 20. And it was the first, and the HIMSS is a big health technology conference. About 40,000 people converge on Orlando. And it got called off because of COVID. It's first COVID canceled conference. But so they spent a month in interviews with the White House to meet him. And I'm not sure, and I laugh. I mean, I think Trump was very curious. Maybe he was also curious because they were a hotel and he has some hotels. Or maybe he was, I'm not sure. How did you guys save almost $4 million in your health plan? But anyway, long story short, Patient Rights Advocate did those videos. And that's how they help move the needle. So all this transparency stuff started, $300 a day fine if the hospitals don't comply, which they'll just sell one more aspirin a month and cover that. but the bottom line is now they're talking about maybe taking it $2 million. Biden came out, I think last week was an announcement and so forth. But their tireless effort to do that is helping, change things. But again, that's boiling the ocean, and that's a long, long play. We can do this if we can take this to a grassroots level, Dr. Cook, and get these communities like Arcadia. If we can bring the city, the county, the school, and any other large employers into this fold and mimic the plan we built with DeSoto Memorial Hospital. Again, we also remove barriers to care. Most of our plans have no deductibles. They have no copays for things. So everyone can take care of themselves. Today, we have a functionally uninsured society because their deductibles are so high, they don't have $500 in their checking account. So if they go to the hospital, they're bankrupt. So people avoid care and delay care. Forget COVID. They were delaying care before COVID ever came out. So we eliminate all those barriers. So if we can do that and bring the city, the county, school, we have a community plan. We can relocalize care. We can keep the money on Main Street instead of sending it to Wall Street. And that's what has to happen. And that can happen. And think about this, Dr. Cook. This hospital is in the fourth poorest county in the state of Florida, 25,406 per capita income. They can do this. And they did do this. They hired their first full-time surgeon in county history with all the savings they had. This is a needle mover.
I really hope you enjoyed my conversation with Carl Schuessler today, and thank you so much for spending some time with us. Thanks also to Ryan Jones, who composes and performs our theme music for us. We do hope you will continue to follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and remember, we depend on your feedback to help us get better. So please, leave us a review and hopefully a 5-star rating. We also hope you'll visit our website at rxforsuccesspodcast.com, where you can offer your own personal prescription for success on SpeakPipe. And finally, don't forget to fill your prescription for success with my next episode.